So this episode, we're talking about nothing that's in the title. This will be
yes, we're going to talk about it
a little bit, I guess. Mostly 2025. Way too early to look ahead. But before we get there, just taking a breath. Talk to you about Dean Evason.
Is that what we're going into first?
I have no idea. I just saw that in the title. I was like,
we have an outline for a reason, but we can do Dean. I mean, he's a finalist for Columbus, which just bizarro world that McClellan was the front runner, was picked, and then all of a sudden something fell apart. I don't know if it was him deciding he didn't want it, or Kings just being like, no, you're going to take his whole salary or screw off. But now it's down to Dean and, what's his name that is probably really pissed off and kicking rocks that he got booted from Edmonton, and they're an absolute wagon now.
Interesting.
You're not aware of this?
No, I'm not. I haven't looked at anything. I have absolutely no idea what's going on. The biggest
reason Wild fans care is because 2 of the first 3 games, I'm pretty sure, this year are against Columbus. That could be super fun. But also, everyone's pretty much hitched their hopes to the wagon that this could get Freddy Gaudreau traded to Columbus. Even Russo is like, yeah, if there's a chance he's getting traded, this is probably the best one. It's like, oh, shit. That. There's a real love affair there. Plus, gets to join his brother, Johnny. So...
yeah, exactly. They're blood. It's no longer a bit like when Russo throws it out there. All right, so now the whole NA, everyone's in on this. I guess it's not a bit anymore. Everyone's like, yo, they're fucking weird how much they're all about each other. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think I don't hate that fit for him either. I mean, I feel like in the past they've tried to the roster that was constructed, and then the coaches behind the bench didn't really it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. They've got an interesting mix, obviously. They've got some young kids coming, which could, I guess, make it more interesting. And yeah, Freddy Gaudreau would probably be 28 minutes a night. But I mean, if he goes there, what contracts we're going to talk about? Oh, never mind. 60% of the 4x4s left on this team. Anyways, now that I have the outline up and running,
well, I think Dean could be a good fit just because Columbus just needs to get their shit together. They don't even. I've probably been too negative on the X's and O's with Dean, because I don't think that is the real value he brings. He fixes a locker room, he fixes a culture, he empowers the players, and Columbus needs a whole hell of a lot of that. So I do think that's a match made in heaven. But him and Woodcroft, who would you rather have if you're a Columbus fan?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of feel on the way out, there was a weird vibe around a guy like Woodcroft where it was hey, look what he did last year. And then at the end, it was what the fuck has he done? Get him out of here. But at the same time, when they fired him, this is his record. It's yeah, but look what the fuck he just did. That loss to the Sharks, was just a death nail. And so there's that kind of conversation. Then they're on Dean. It was, I feel around the league, everyone's hey, he's pretty good coach. But I don't know how much other fans know that. I honestly don't know how much other teams know about head coaches and what they look like behind their team's bench. And those are 2 specific guys where it's before their last jobs. If you were in hockey, you knew who they were and you were familiar, or if you're up to date constantly on up and coming coaches, whatever. But other than that, pretty low key profiles between the 2 of them. And McClellan's the opposite. Everyone's seen him around forever, coaching very good hockey teams. I do think it's very weird that out of nowhere they're just kidding. This is now done. Because I thought, I'll be honest with you, in my head that was it was official. I am now aware that it's not as of 18 seconds ago. No, maybe 2 minutes. But I thought the McClellan hire would have made a ton of sense because, like, I think that guy's a good fucking coach.
He's a good coach, but is this roster even ready for a coach like McClellan? Like, I feel like McClellan's there if you're a fringe playoff team and you want to make it into the playoffs. Columbus isn't that.
Yeah, I'm still like, it boggles the mind how bad they were. Because I mean, some of the signings that they made,
correct,
right? And like, I would have been surprised coming into last year or whatever it was. I guess was that 2 years ago? Gaudreau signed there. Was this year 3? Holy shit!
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my god, time is
and it's isn't it year 3 of Provorov too?
Good lord. No, I think it's year 2.
Yeah, year 2. Like they got him at the end of the 3rd. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, I do think there's too much talent that is there for them to be as bad as they were. Now the injuries obviously were horrific too. They've also got a couple young kids coming that should vie for time this year. Like, and we'll see where the organization's at, or we'll see where Yursek's at with them because we saw those comments last year. But like you said, a guy like Dean Evason, like in terms of just pure vibes, desperately needed. I don't know how much personality really there is with like a guy like Woodcroft. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It seems like there's that's the thing that everyone's saying. It's like, do you want like shy, meager Woodcroft, or do you want fiery, punch you in the face Dean Evason? Like,
and like challenge those
polar opposites. The people that like don't know the coaches super well. It's like, you get one or the other. Like that's it. But I do think to knock Woodcroft is unfair because he literally got ousted the same way Dean did, and the same way every coach has been of late. Shitty fucking goaltending.
Yeah. And I mean, he did like the thing with the pair with that goaltending. He tried to change their defense, and like not only did it not work, it was horrific. And like, he was like, "We're gonna keep trying it for a little bit," and they were like, "Hey, man, like it's not working," and he's like, we're just gonna keep working on it. And that team was fucking atrocious, and then he's gone, and immediately it does not help that they went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final for him personally. Like it's like now in a good, like the solid overall record that he did have with them before this like is out the window because it's like, okay, they were like the worst team on the planet. They lost to the Sharks, and then immediately he's gone. They rattle off 500 wins in a row and go to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final.
And I've thought about this, and I honestly like I've twisted it in my brain a couple different ways. I don't know if it's better or worse for him that his replacement was Connor McDavid's friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's like, hey, it's fucking threw his buddy behind the bench, and all of a sudden it was
and now they're the like leading favorite for the cup this coming year. So like Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Which they also were last year. They were last year too. It was like them with the Rangers or whatever.
They made some good.
That was also very funny. Which is also just like very funny. Again,
their season's going to come down to the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a believer. I'm not sitting here saying that he's a top 10 goalie in the league, but I've always been a Stuart Skinner believer. The talent's there. He's so volatile, though. He is truly the decision maker on whether or not they can go on another run. Like we saw it even in this postseason. Like when he was at least enough dialed in, they were set. If not, they don't have any other options, dude. What are they going to do?
Right.
So it's interesting, but yeah, I mean, Dean following in Mikko Koivu's footsteps, it's way too fitting. I do think now that Arizona is out of the mix, right? It's the bland Utah generic jerseys. I think Columbus's third jerseys are the best in the league. I know a lot of people disagree, but that's my favorite jersey.
No, I'm a big fan of those. I think they're sick. Yeah, no, the Utah Hockey Club backyard hockey fucking custom shirt. Yeah.
I think that's funny. For a year.
Yeah. No, what if they're like, what if they're really good? They make the playoffs and like, what are we going to fucking change it? No. Like, I guess we're just, this is it. This is it.
They don't have Sid there. There's no superstitions. They're okay.
That's a good point.
Okay. Fair. Yeah. So yeah, Dean and Freddy to Columbus. Mark it down. Maybe it'd be so funny if that was part of the Wild's negotiations to like, hey, we'll continue paying Dean his whole contract, but you guys got to take Freddie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His full contract isn't actually his full contract. It's they're in tandem.
Yeah. Next one. A lot of people are like shocked by this. I'm a little surprised just given how like last year was a little resurgent for him, but Evgeny Kuznetzov doing what Russians do late in their career, going and getting that KHL money, except he was due to make like $6 million this year. So it's a little weird, but again, he's probably making quite a good amount of money for the next 4 years with Ska. So plus he can have all the party favors he cares to.
Yeah. And I mean, he's old, so he's going to be first line. So he might get 30 minutes a night with that fucking coach.
Not have to try.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I mean, like, you saw flashes of old Kuznetsov when he did go to Carolina. Like, obviously, again, there were still some of the same concerns that realistically his whole career have fucking been there. Like, yeah, there's going to be games where, like, he's super fucking lazy. You're going to forget he's there. He has no interest in, like, going back over his own red line. Like, he doesn't want to do that. But, like, I mean, it looked like he was enjoying playing hockey again. And again, like, you saw the flashes of skill, the goal scorer, the playmaking, whatever. And, like, didn't look like a guy that wouldn't be able to find a job in the NHL again. So, yeah, no, I mean, especially given the fact, well, actually, I'm not surprised he got the four years over there, which really, like, the years just don't mean anything. But
he can also have legacy deals there as long as he wants. Like, they're not going to get rid of a guy with that profile.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I don't know, a little surprising because it seemed like he had new life in Carolina, and especially like a team that has already lost a lot. It's like, oh, okay, there's another thing we got to figure out. And again, not a huge loss, but still, it's something.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it, like I saw that had happened, and I was like, oh, really? All right. Yeah, okay. And I was like, yeah, I guess it kind of does make sense. But I mean, I thought he would have at least had another year or two left. But yeah, there he goes. He's going to be making a bank over there.
There she goes. Mm-hmm. Hey, say what you want about my singing. It's better than the alcoholic anthem singer.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
Kudos to her, I guess, for like owning it. You saw that, right? Like her her response. I shit you not, though, man. I gotta remember exactly what it was called, but right after it, like I had told Laura about it the night before, like when it happened, and I'm like, you got to hear this. She's like, yeah, I just don't care. Then that statement came out, and I go to her, I'm like, do you want to listen now? She's like, yeah, kinda. So I pull it up, and she listens. She's like, oh my God. And like she's like, what's this person's name? So looks it up immediately. And she's like, well, first off, she is actually a good singer. But second off, the first song that popped up, Wishful Drinking.
I mean,
it's just poetic.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it was like the fact that it was legitimately immediate. Like,
what was? Oh, for her to find that?
No, the announcement of, you know.
It was the next day, but yeah.
It was just like, oh, fuck. Like you said, though, people like didn't see that, like, I'm not really, like, I have no interest in watching, like, maybe I'll check out this bad anthem. And the next day it's like, checks into rehab. You're like, holy shit, how bad was it? Like, oh, and then you watch it, you're like, I can't do, I have to, is it unpatriotic to turn this off halfway through because I can't go through another fucking second of it. It was painful. Yeah.
It got worse as it went too.
Yeah, no, it was significantly worse as it went, and that's why I was like, I can't do the whole thing. I just couldn't do it. So
yeah, something. But yeah, somehow we went from Kuznetsov going to the KHL to drunk anthem singers. All right, next one, Torey Krug out indefinitely. Your boy, he's got some degenerative ankle, knee, something that like he's at least out 6 to 8 weeks, could be out for the entire season, depending on what the results are of some tests. The main reason I include this here, not just because he's a former Bruin that you cared about, but is Ryan Suter going to work his way into top 4 minutes again?
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Incredible. It's incredible.
If you think he was going there without that guarantee that he at the very least had a very good chance of getting there, regardless, you're out of your mind. But
it's so good.
On the Torey Krug front, I hate those. Like, I guess you call it an injury. I mean, I guess it is, but it just feels different. Where it's just like could be 6 to 8 weeks, but like just the indefinite thing sucks. And I mean, like life or just like it hasn't gone obviously as well as it did in Boston and St. Louis for him. And I mean, there's been like the trade in the past that he nixed, which like obviously pissed off a lot of fans, put him on like in bad favor with them. And then the play just hasn't been like, he has not been remotely close to the same player. It's also just when he signed there, just a very weird decor in general, I think. And the fit was never great to begin with. But yeah, I mean, it's scary. I don't want to say sad yet because it's like I'm more just sort of like I hate those weird degenerative fucking like issues where again the fact is like indefinite, where it's like yeah he could just be done. We don't know. Like I hate those. And it sucks. Yeah. But
and
God was used to here.
Taking nothing away from like the seriousness of it, because I agree with you entirely on every sentiment there. Doesn't it make you just a little bit more sad though that he didn't end up in Philly?
Oh God. Yeah.
People would be like giving him death threats probably. So it's probably for the best. Like, but of course, like, you know, there's going to be people in St. Louis who decide to be donkeys too. Like, why couldn't you just go to Philly?
Like, yeah, no, you're right. I should have thought about you guys first. Instead of like, I should have put your priorities ahead of mine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Either way, it's fucking. I saw that update. That was one update I did see today. Hated it. But I mean, hopefully they get it figured out and it's closer to the 6-8 than more than that. But yeah,
yeah, it's a bummer. But hey, Ryan Suter, keep doing you, buddy. Don't know if you saw this one, but posted it from the Sota Pod account. Dom Luszczyszyn puts out his top 10 best and then bottom 10, like the worst, contracts in the NHL based on what they're being paid, based on all of their performance and like what they should be paid. Number 10, which I'm sure people will take super rationally, Matt Boldy, the 10th best contract in the NHL. What do you think based on Dom's analytics model? He's making $7 million a year right now. What do you think his value is in dollars per Dom?
I mean, I didn't look at his model, but I mean, to me, it makes sense, especially. Well, I mean, like we've seen even in his struggles, when you look at just his numbers since he's been in the NHL, like he's been a stud and he's only 23 years old. You pair that with the fact that the cap continues to go up. Like it's an absolute bargain.
I agree. But so answer the question. What is your prediction for what Dom's model projects his true value at? Like what should his annual value be?
Closer to like 9, probably.
11.
Oh, wow.
Based on age, based on production, based on so many things. So
yeah, I mean,
maybe in the coming weeks we'll have to do a Boldy deep dive.
Well, yeah, and I mean, obviously 11. I mean, I still am just getting used to like multiple players signing and like making 11 million. So I don't even know like what an $11 million player is anymore.
What's
like there's some. Yeah, like it's like oh Jesus.
Is that what Boldy is? I mean, guy that looks really good during the regular season, postseason is irrelevant. It fits.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll say this blue in the face. Whenever people try to bring up like individual players not showing up in the playoffs, it's like the last 3, like let's just say since Kirill got here, there's been like 2 guys, maybe 3, that have played well in the playoffs in like the fucking few games that they've played.
I came up with 3 without even like trying. So
consistently the whole playoff, like every year, it's like 2 guys showed up, 1 guy showed up, 2 guys showed up, and it's just like they've been bad. Like
actually,
like everything just goes quite forward.
I think my 3 is where it ends. So
yeah.
What would you say about Brodin? Probably hasn't quite hit expectations.
I mean, I guess it depends. Like, he's a weird one because it's like, well, what are your expectations?
Well,
I mean, they're fucking losing. They're giving up goals, so I guess automatically.
Right. Well, random bomb that came from Russo while sipping on wines over in Portugal, but basically said, like, yeah, I don't expect Brodin or Spurgeon to finish their contracts here.
The Spurgeon one I wasn't shocked at, just given specifically the injury thing. The Brodin, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I love
Tony Pants started saying other things after that. My brain turned off, so I don't even know really what the context was, but I was just surprised to hear those 2 names.
Yeah, that is surprising. I don't see. I mean, the Brodin, I don't know why that would be even. Wouldn't have even seen that coming as being a point of conversation. Like, that's crazy to me, but whatever. But I mean, again, so like with Boldy, like you said, the age, the production, what he's done so far on a team that like historically, I don't know, put up either like pretty mid offense. Yeah, there you go. But I mean, he also gives you that 2-way game. He is an excellent defensive forward as well. So he's just an interesting player. Like, because again, he's another guy that he's not necessarily like fleet footed or the fastest just in terms of like raw speed, but he thinks at an extremely high level, like, and he plays quick. And it's like, he's a guy that also, when he's not playing well, he still might pop up for like 2 or 3 points. Like, I think just generally with how smart he is. Again, like when he signed that, people were trying to like shit on it. It's like, clearly you like are looking for reason to be mad because like, oh, that's going to be a bargain soon. I'm like, it already fucking is.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the contracts that get dealed out, the fact that he's there for 7 fucking years.
Hang on though. The part where I'll agree with the fans that are going to be haters. And it's not that I agree, but I understand the sentiment when they look at just the volatility. Like Boldy is either all-star superhero wearing a cape, Matt Boldy, or he is invisible. And when you invest in a guy long-term, you don't want to see that level of like peak and valley. Now, he's young. I just think in the next year or 2, he needs to flatline that out a little bit, or like I'll understand the criticisms a bit more, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
do you agree, or, I mean, debate. You're angry. Today's been horrible. There's flies in your apartment. Go.
There's so many in front of my face. And like, just like, I blacked out. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about these fucking flies? Because I'd love to like talk about these bottom 10 contracts. Anyways, I don't know. Like, again, when I look at Boldy and even like whatever the peaks and valleys, when he's like been quote unquote invisible, I still look, it's like, all right, well, what's the expectation, the line that he's on? Are you expecting him to be like the play driver? Now, there's been a lot of times where he's just like, yeah, like when he's in those lulls, he'll miss chances where it's like, man, that's like, you never, the fact that I'm saying like, you never miss, like, how did that, like, that's one that's usually the back of the net every fucking time. And I mean, he steps into the league first year, 47 games, 15 goals. Last year, or 2 years ago, I guess, 31 goals and 81, 29 goals and 75 this past year. Like, he's like his point production since he stepped in the league on a team that's like not exactly like a cup contender. Like, again, when he signed that contract, I thought that was already like a bargain considering like what his ceiling is, what he had already done to that point. And I mean, like the team that he did it on, like to me, it was like, you get him for 7 years. It's not one of those like weird 3 or 4 year bridge deals. That's like just lining you up to get fucked over when they're like 28 years old. And again, like this is like, it's 23, like, and he's already at 75 goals in his career in 200 games, 171 points. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, I don't know what $11 million, like, I don't know what that player is anymore, especially if the cap goes up, because I do think there is like a legit, like that inflates everybody's value. But I totally get like the being like the top 10 conversation.
Okay. Did it.
Did he have, I wonder what, I would imagine that given, I would imagine Kirill's not in there, right? Like he's not like considering he's got 1 or 2 years left or something.
It is partially based on like years remaining. Like basically said like Draisaitl wasn't in there, but that's because he's only got 1 year left. Like I think
I'm just wondering what that his valuation would be.
It would probably be insane.
Yeah, I bet it's something comical.
Yeah.
But Boldy locked up till 2030, which still doesn't sound like a real year. Let's just have this
conversation. How confident are we that 2030 is even going to happen?
That's exactly where I was going. Are we like you want to like maybe Brody and Spurs are making their the end of their deal. Are we making it to 20? Like are we making it to the end of Boldy's contract? I don't know. Like that's crazy to me.
Oh man. Lethal Migraine. I need to go to one of these Beauty League nights. Jake Gensel is there tonight. Would be fun to see him play in a no pressure situation. I disagree with this one in particular. I agree with like a lot of the players like just messing around. Jake Gensel is so fun to watch in pressure situations. Like it feels like that's where he thrives. But here we go. Hell, it would be fun to watch Kalen Addison when his job isn't on the line. Very much agree. Very much agree.
Yeah.
And see, we might have to talk some weeks. We might have to adjust which night we record because Joe got us. I don't think it was very hard, but he got us credentials to go in and hopefully bank some interviews for Fellowship of the Rink. So
nice.
we'll talk about that in the future.
You know who put up a hat trick either today or maybe it was last night in the Beauty League?
Wouldn't have been last night.
Whatever. So tonight, maybe? Derek Forbort. Legend of the game. Hell yeah, hat trick, baby.
Apparently he lives next door to the owner of my wife's company.
Hell yeah.
And I think he was renting his house out to God, I want to say it was like Anthony Edwards, like a bunch of his family during the whole like playoff run because he wasn't here, which is awesome.
These are funny.
Allegedly.
In my head, like I have no idea if, like how well they would, but like there's just very funny friendship in my head. Anyways, we gotta move on. I love that.
Hang on, this one from Cosgrove that I'm sure people will either overreact or in a good or bad way too. Wheeler also said Boyum is the number 5 prospect under 25, and because he's got a stutter, Wallstedt was the number 1 goalie, which is interesting because I've heard most people saying Yaroslav Askarov is the number 1, which seems really weird to me, but good on Wheeler.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the conversation in terms of people that follow prospects pretty closely lasts like especially 2 years. Like Wallstedt had kind of taken that number 1 spot, so it doesn't surprise me at all. The William thing is fascinating, and same time, like it is crazy when you just take a step back and look at how much he's already done, like at his age, like 40 or 50 points as a defenseman in college hockey as a freshman year, in his draft year, World Junior gold medal, where he by the end of the tournament was a top 4 defenseman, logging over 20 minutes a night. Finished, I think, like the best plus minus in that tournament. And again, he was at a national championship, and he was like legitimately not just a passenger; he was one of the best players on that team. Like it's crazy how much he's already done. I didn't look at the list. Shocking.
Dude, he went on Spittin' Chicklets, and he's a beauty. I
saw some of the clips. I was like, my God, he's just hot. How did he not get drafted? Like early. It's crazy to me. Like you would
Don't-
think if any team talked to him, they're like, I need him.
He missed a lot of interviews, I think.
Must have,
leave a migrant. I dismissed Wheeler when he didn't put Yurov up top. You know what? I'll bite. That's fair. This one's the I need your opinion on from Mateo. Riley Height under Tarek Parashak was a choice. How do you feel about that one? Because I know like they didn't really play together all the time. You watched a decent amount of both of them. Like, who do you think has more upside moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say Riley Height, considering, I mean, even just the fact that he's had 2 full WHL seasons and he's done what he's done. Tarek Parashak, he's just so interesting. I mean, again, like he talking about a kid that went from like basically Canadian high school hockey, steps to the WHL, is top whatever in points. And I mean, like, again, did he get a lot of points just courtesy of being on a really good line? Yeah, sure. He's also super smart. And again, I feel like you're either very, very high on Parashak or you're just like, yeah, he's a good player. Like there's no like, maybe his ceiling could be crazy high. It's either you really fucking believe in him. Like, I don't think anyone looks at it like, yeah, I just see nothing there. Like, that's not a thing. But I don't know. I just never had that. Like, I think a lot of the things that he does really well that goes nice with the fact and lends itself to the fact that he put up so many points in his first full season in WHL is I think he is like a super smart player. And I think the hockey sense is super high and just like positioning wise. So I think that'll obviously lend itself well at the next level. But in terms of just like raw upside, it's hard for me to agree that he would be above a guy like Riley Height, where it's just like he's got that just raw athleticism, the dual threat, the fact that he just plays with the edge that he plays with. So, I mean, again, I'm more on like the second part of that like analysis of Parashak, where I'm like, yeah, I see a good player there. Like, I'm not gonna like I thought 17 was too high, but like I didn't necessarily think he definitely shouldn't have gone first round, but again, he definitely has his believers, and I get it. I just am not all the way there yet. So I think I don't agree, but I get it.
Oh, yeah. Last one, because this is an interesting one just to give people perspective, and then we'll move on to our way too early segments. Shane Wright ahead of Yurov is definitely another choice. How do you feel on this one? Because obviously Shane Wright had the pedigree, like people expected him to go first overall, whatever. But where they're at, how they've developed, how they're pacing, Shane Wright, Danila Yurov, pretty similar. Do you see like one way higher than the other?
I mean, I would agree that Shane Wright, it's still like people have to remember with Yurov coming into their draft seasons. Yeah, Yurov was looked at top 10. Shane Wright was like number 1. Like, again, I always thought the comparison was just like crazy. And I mean, I think any comparisons like these are like super unfair, but I mean, like a lot of people that have been watching Shane Wright forever would tell you like if he hits his full potential, you're looking at Patrice Bergeron. Like, not just a guy that's going to be putting up good points, solid offense, whatever, but like an elite defensive centerman too. By the way, he is absolutely a center. At least that's how he's always been projected. So with the center, just the pure upside that's always been there much longer than a guy like Yurov. And like Yurov legitimately had 2 years basically of lost development, including in his draft year, where like for whatever reason in the KHL, they do the thing where it's just like, yeah, we could let him go play junior and actually get ice time and actually like play, or we could have him sit on the bench for 8 seconds a game. Or like get 8 seconds of ice time and then sit on the bench the rest of the game. I mean, he did that for 2 fucking years, and even like the year before, like his draft plus 1 year, like I think they let him play maybe 15 or maybe 20 junior games that year, and he was getting 2 minutes a night. So he like realistically did have 2 very crucial years of lost development. Plus, you pair that with the fact that he timed it like his draft year was that first year after like full blown COVID, where like his draft year was like they were affected in their draft -1. And Hoppy's now gone. Maybe I'm gone. I don't know. But I totally can understand. And I mean, I would probably still agree just with the fact that Shane Wright at this point would be higher on that list over a guy like Yurov. Again, like we've had one full year of Yurov doing his thing and popping off. Shane Wright obviously has not happened for him. We've seen it in flashes, like when he goes and plays Team Canada, he's been really good. And I mean, he had a few games this year in Seattle where like he looks good again, but 1 year I would say that you would look at it and say, yeah, Yurov right now is better. So I would still put Wright ahead, but I mean, the way they're trending, that's a different conversation.
Sure. Which I guess I don't know exactly how Wheeler is analyzing it, but it's interesting nonetheless.